Hello, Kris here, Green Sabre, doing Telly, episode 25. 25, yeah. Apologies, I don't know if you can hear like drilling and fucking chainsaws. There are workmen outside doing something to the neighbour's fence, so yeah, apologies for the background noise. However, that kind of background industrial noise might work out very well for today's episode, which I shall go into in due course. So, sorry, I'm still bunged up, still full of cold. Still coughing, so there might be lots of that throughout this video. Okay, to start off with very quickly, update. Rehearsed last night, went through the set a couple of times. It's down this Sunday, Easter Sunday, night train, Bradford. From the Crypt, we're opening, we're on at 4 o'clock, so if you are in the area, you are planning on getting down there. I think doors are 3:30, and we will be on at 4 o'clock prompt. In fact, the way our set's working out, we might be on at 2 minutes to 4 at this rate, because we're running 2 minutes over 40 minutes approximately. So, but we've tried, barring, you know, going through the stuff a bit overly fast, that's what it's going to be, 42 minute set for us. So, yeah, this Sunday, get yourself to Night Train in Bradford. Not just us, it's a phenomenal lineup. Black Falcon, Oaken Throne, Bang Bang Firecracker, Gods of Hellfire, Sound of Origin, Son of Boar. I feel like I've forgotten someone off of that list. Anyway, I have forgotten someone off of that list, I'm sure I have. But anyway, it's going to be a fucking ripper of a night. So, yeah, can't wait for that. So, all rehearsed up. What gear we need is packed and loaded. And we'll see you guys there at the venue. So, yeah, it's going to be a cracker. Okay. Updates out of the way. Today's video, I've decided, because again, I was sort of, there's a few that I want to do, but a few that I still don't yet have copies of ones that are in my top 10s and blah, blah, and all that. So I want some physical media. And I've realised that now by starting this video, one of them that I need here that I've got on CD, I forgot to dig out, so it's packed away because I'm a fucking idiot. But anyway, I can get by. It's not the end of the world. Today's video is titled Positively Negative, and I am giving you, in my humble opinion, the order of greatness of Type O Negative records. I should stress all Type O Negative records are great. Just fantastic band. Massive band for me. Massive band for Green Sabre as a unit. I think it was Gaz that got me into them. But I remember we were either going to a gig or a rehearsal or something along those lines, and he played me the Bloody Kisses album. That was the first thing I'd heard about it, so it will have been 93 at some point. I put it on in car, and I was just like, I couldn't get my head around it. I thought, this is just incredible. What is this? Who is this? Because it was like doom metal, but with a Sisters of Mercy twist thrown in. And it's something that lots of bands have done since. And probably, I mean, you could argue that Paradise Lost were the pioneers of that kind of goth doom sort of vibe, really. But Type O just sort of took it to a whole new level. I mean, it was sort of seriously Sisters in places and doomy as hell in others. But what Type O had was that kind of slightly old school New York hardcore element going off as well. So anyway, we'll get into all that as we go through the best of. But yeah, I was absolutely hooked. I think it was a week later, Gaz had done me a tape up of Bloody Kisses, and I don't think I stopped listening to that for about 8 months. It was just everything. That particular 1993, it was comfortably my album of the year, and there was lots of great stuff out that year as well. But anyway, so Type O Negative, yeah. Rossi the bassman, he loves them. Gaz loves them, obviously. Bry took him a while to get around to it. I think at the time he couldn't quite work out what we were all getting so excited about. But, yeah, since it makes sense to him. So, yeah. So, Type O Negative. I've got a list here of 7 albums. Now, 7 studio albums, and I only do those fucking daft speech marks because one of them is a faux live album, if you will. It's a not-so-live album. I can't remember if it's like an urban myth or anything like that, but about them contractually being obliged to release a live record, or if that's just bullshit. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get there. So I'm doing what I think is, in order of greatness, Now, they're all fucking great albums, all of them. Typo haven't done a bad record for me, or didn't. So, yeah, it's just orders of greatness. So it was knowing where to start, and I have decided to start with, let me dig it out, because essentially I've got loads of Typo. Let me show you the kind of, the bundle. So that's my Typo vinyl. But most of them are coming from this box set. Now, this is the reissue of the, what was it called? None More Negative. It's the, was it 2021 or 2020 or whenever it was, reissue of all the Roadrunner studio albums, as such. So, yeah, I was pretty pleased to get hold of this. It cost a fucking arm and a leg, but, I mean, it's worth even more now, so it's just fucking stupid what these go for. But anyway, I digress. Coming in at number 7, I have picked this one. Now, you'll notice on this box set reissue, they don't have the Typo negative and the title in it. They're all just sort of clear cut, which I kind of like, really. But I'd also quite like them with the Typo, with the logo on it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just the clear artwork. Life is Killing Me. This is a great album, and there are some absolutely stunning tracks on this one. I mean, one straight off the bat, Anesthesia is one of Typo's finest hours for me. It's an absolutely belting song. But you've got other greats on here. Like I love the opener, the opening instrumental 13, which is a really good sort of, is it some reworking of some incidental music from the Addams Family or something like that, or from the Munsters, one of them. So, yeah, that's it. It goes into I Don't Want to Be Me, which I really like, sort of up-tempo, more of that kind of New York hardcore vibe to it, almost pop-punky in places, you could argue, but a really good way to start the album. There's I Like Goyles, which is another kind of, there's a few more of the hardcore ones sort of arrived on this one. What's the other one that, is it Angry Inch? Yeah. Which is something to do with some New York musical. But anyway, I digress. Junk in Paris is another great little instrumental piece on here. The Dream is Dead's a great way of ending it. Nettie is one of my favourites on here, which I think is a song about his mum. But an absolutely belting track on here. The title track, Life is Killing Me. What's the other one that I quite like? Is it the... Gimme That, which is If You Don't Kill Me, I'm going to Have to Kill You. There are some absolute gems on here. The reason, I'm sure you're all thinking, before I waffle on for much longer, the reason why I put it in at my number 7 is because it feels like Typo albums are generally pretty thematic and structured in a way that the theme revolves its way through it very, very deliberately. That one seems devoid of a theme, and it feels slightly fractured because of that as an album. Does that make sense? It feels a little thrown together in places. I mean, if that's an album thrown together, then I wish I had that formula, because like I say, there's some absolutely fucking blinding songs on it. But yeah, it lacks the cohesion and the thread that other Typo albums have. That would be my only gripe with that record. It doesn't feel quite polished like the other ones are. It feels like there's shit going on behind the scenes, and they've kind of worked around it. So, yeah, that is the only reason why that comes in at my number 7. So, yeah, Life is Killing Me. 7 on the list. Next up is this one. Now, oh, sorry, there's all bits and pieces falling out of this, all extras and posters and whatnot. Right. I'll show you this side, because I don't want... I'll just give you a brief look at Pete Steele's anus for the kids there. Pete Steele's anus. Is there some better... Yeah, let's go with the inner work as well. Now, these are all... But anyway, I'm getting off the beaten track. Origin of the Feces, hence the picture of an arse on the front of it. But yeah, that is my choice at number 6. Now, all these in this box set come in at this fairly natty, sort of, I don't know if you can see it, marbly green, black green effect, yeah. So, yeah, lovely stuff. I think I paid 160 quid for the box set, but they're going for like fucking 400 now. Yeah, it's insane. But anyway, my number 6, Origin of the Feces. And you think, yeah, but this is a bit of a sort of a daft live album, isn't it? How's that coming above a studio album? Well, I'll tell you why. Because what I love about this is it's typical Type O Negative joke nature with all that stuff. Pete Steele taking the piss, which he was sort of renowned for as such. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, one of the rumours, but I don't know if it's one of these urban myths that's bullshit that just fucking gained traction and grew legs, but the myth was that Roadrunner had insisted that one of the albums had to be a live record, or if maybe that isn't the myth, maybe the myth is that already at that point they were contracted to do however many albums, and Pete Steele was trying to get out of it by just putting another one out, because essentially, barring a few extra tracks and stuff like that, this is the songs off Slow, Deep and Hard, the debut, reworked. I love how they've done it with like the fake sort of Live from Brighton Beach at some undisclosed venue with the fake crowd that fucking hate them, and Pete Steele hates the crowd. There's a bomb threat in there, and it's brilliantly done because it does sound like a live record. It really does. They've done it fucking fantastically well. So it sounds like a live album, and it sits like a live album. And they've reworked some of the tracks, like the opening track, Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity, is it, off of Slow, Deep and Hard. It's called I Know You're Fucking Someone Else on this one, which is the back end of that particular part of the song. But yeah, they've reworked it. There's a few extra tracks on here. One of my favourites, Are You Afraid? A great little gothy sisters doomy piece, just sort of interlude. It's only like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe something like that. Goes into Gravity, which is a reworking of another track off of Slow, Deep and Hard. And they're kind of, it's a great way of sort of, it's almost like they just kind of like took pieces of it and parts and work it into some overall thread, which is the reason why this sits slightly higher than Life Is Killing Me, because there's more of a thread on this album even. It's clearly kind of like worked out that way. And I really respect them for this. It is a great, it's one of the few live albums that will play relentlessly. There's not many. And it's ace. It's a really good reworking of Slow, Deep and Hard. Now, I think that was an issue that Pete Steele had throughout his career, where he was never happy. And any of you out there, I imagine, will think the same as me, and I'm the same from an artist's perspective. Well, you know, someone that puts their own music out. It's really, it's kind of cemented. It's there, encased in glass, if you will. Once it's out there, you have these versions of songs that become the unmessed with framework. This is how they will be forevermore. And it's quite hard that sometimes, because you might still be, there are organic pieces to you. I know for me, for someone who's written like the Green Sabre stuff, the kind of pieces that evolve in time, and you can kind of, I mean, you can always sort of rework a solo here and there, that kind of stuff. But I love how they completely restructure parts of it, and for the better in places as well. Now, you could argue that, well, they should be higher than Slow, Deep and Hard then. It isn't, but anyway, we'll get there. So yeah, that's my number 6. Coming in at number 5, make sure I've got the order right, is the aforementioned Slow, Deep and Hard. The debut album from Type O. A lot more New York hardcore vibe on this one. But some crushingly slow doomy sections as well. They called it Gravity on Origin of the Feces. Gravitational Constant is what it's called on here. And some really good, slow, moody, doomy bits. If you've heard Pete Steele's band before Type O Negative, Carnivore, you can hear lots of Carnivore on this album. It feels like a natural continuation of where he left off with Carnivore, really. And it's got the Prelude to Agony is another fucking absolute ripper. And there's so many good songs on here. As mentioned before, Unsuccessfully Coping. It's such a good way to open the album. And I believe, again, I don't know if this is another urban myth, that he kind of locked himself away and wrote this whole thing in a matter of a couple of days. And it's just a brilliantly structured piece of very angry work. He's a very angry man on this record, and you can hear it. I mean, you've got tracks like Der Untermensch. It's a great little tune. Lyrically, I don't know if it's aged brilliantly, if we're going to be brutally honest. It It's a child of its times. Let's just put it that way and leave it there. Zero Tolerance, another great song there that became Kill You Tonight on the Origin album. Glass Walls, a Limbo Dance remix, which, yeah, is different, shall we say. And, of course, the classic track, The Misinterpretation of Silence and Its Disastrous Consequences, which is just, however long, 1:04 of absolute silence. Again, so you can see early on Pete Steele fucking with his audience, which I have nothing but respect for. He was an absolute idol of mine, was Pete Steele. And Typo were a band that, for fucking reasons that I will forever regret, I never saw live. I had the offer to go and see him, I think on the October Rust tour. By the time I got into him, I think they'd done the Bloody Kisses touring cycle. I missed him on the October Rust tour. It was one of them where I'll catch him next time. And then I think it was either the World Coming Down or Life Is Killing Me tour. I think it was the World Coming Down one, actually, which was another chance that I had to go and see him. And for reasons unknown, didn't. Missed the boat, never got to see him, one of my favourite bands of all time, and that will forever be a regret that I never caught them live. So any of you that did catch them live, just, you can tell me how great they are in the comments, and I can weep as I read them. But Rossi, the bass player, has seen them about 5 times live, I think, and he is forever reminding me just how fucking great they were live. So, yeah. Such is. Okay, so that was my number 5, Slow, Deep and Hard, the debut. Coming in at number 4, now I've got two copies of this, is their final album, Dead Again. Look, 2 copies. Dead Again. Now this, yeah, that's the right one. This is the official repress that came out last year. Yeah, last year. This is a bootleg that I picked up online for about 20 quid, I think. It's a really good boot, to be fair. It's a really, really good sound. I've had other boots where it's clear that they're clearly ripped from a fucking MP3 or the CD or something, and they're really quiet. This one's a really, really good boot, I have to say. Yeah, it's a really decent copy of it, so hats off whoever booted that fucker. But, yeah. Dead Again, the final album. And there is some absolute masterpieces on it, and a great thread running throughout. One of my personal favourites is the track where, is it These Three Things? I think it's that one that's about, it's Pete Steele's very much anti-abortion tune. And what I find funny about this, and he must be, he was always very tongue-in-cheek and taking the piss, but what I find hilarious about this album is the fact that at this point, Pete Steele's found God again. I don't know again, or he's found God anyway, and he's become very religious in his older years. And there's elements on here that sound like very, very fucking preachy for me. And it's like, you forget your back catalogue, Pete. Don't start fucking preaching to me about all your Jesus shite. But he must have been tongue-in-cheek with it. He has to have been. I mean, he spent his whole career tongue-in-cheek. So, yeah, I find it quite hard to believe. But, yeah, it's kind of the vitriol and the anti-abortion thing, sort of. Have you been pregnant, Pete? Right, well, shut up then. You know, so little things on here. That, yeah, I find, that he found religion and then immediately slipped into the fucking male-dominated patriarchy of the whole thing. But anyway, I digress. I'm getting slightly annoyed. But, yeah, still a great album. And there's some great subjects on here. And there's some great fucking songs on here. And, yeah, like I was sort of like, I have issues with his opinion on the These Three Things thing. But it's a great subject matter, a great song. It gets people talking. But Dead Again, what a way to open the album. Just straight in ripper from start to finish, hardcore vibe, Tripping a Blind Man. There's slightly proggy elements to the doom that they've put in here. I say slightly, it's not a prog album, let's not get excitable, but there's just slightly more progression in the arc of the songs, and there's some big fucking songs on here. These Three Things, as mentioned, Prophets of Doom, September Sun, which is a really nice sort of Beatley vibe to it as such, and then goes off on a sort of tangent at the end. She Burned Me Down. Halloween in Heaven is 1 weak spot for me. It just, I think the chorus slightly annoys me with his Halloween in Heaven and then Kenny in his shrieky voice singing Christmas in Hell. I mean, it's just a bad lyric, really. But, you know, yeah, again, typo, tongue-in-cheek, and blah, blah, and all that. Hail and Farewell to Britain is a fantastic way to finish this album, though. Great crescendo to finish, and what is a stunning final album, and stunning, and that's why it's made it all the way to number 4 in my collection, because it's, in my opinion, I should say, because I just find it's It's a tremendous way to finish a tremendous record. And it's such a shame that that was what they went out on. But they went out on a high because of that. So yeah, that's why that's my number 4. The top 3 now. I think you've probably already gathered which way I'm going with this. But coming in at my number 3 typo album is this. Will Coming Down. The album that followed October Rust, and the album that I weirdly at the time had the most issues with. When this came out, I will be honest, I wasn't an enormous fan of it. I struggled with it. October Rust, I might as well tell you now because it's coming up soon, and it's my favourite Typo Negative record. This, as a follow-up to that, I had problems with it because it was so depressing. I mean, Typo Negatives, they're all depressing, in a sense. That's the subject matter. That's what you're... But this seemed like such a really depressing cutaway from where they'd left off with October Rust. And it was a hard sell at first. It was difficult to get my head around. The subject matter on here is brutal. And Pete is clearly in a fucking bad place when he's writing this record. It was that I love the album cover as well. I don't know, sort of in the distance you can see the 2 towers on there as such. Like, have they airbrushed them out? They've probably airbrushed them out. I think they've airbrushed them out. Yeah. It's something because I tend to put, but yeah, the 2 towers were there on the original picture. Apparently, this picture's taken from the Brooklyn side of the Brooklyn Bridge, and this particular bit now I don't think you can get to properly because it's all been fucking gentrified and hipster flats have gone up on there. But a terrific album. Love the green. I mean, Green Sabre. I'd be lying if I didn't say that Typo Negative's colour palette wasn't directly responsible for partly why we went with the green in the title. But anyway, this is a phenomenal record. And I did realise that eventually. Yeah. In fact, I think it was it was after Life Is Killing Me came out that I went back to this and realised, oh, do you know what? Yeah. Okay. Get it. But you've got your jokey intro, which, you know, was funny for a bit on the October Rust jokey intro. Doing it again on the follow-up album is a bit kind of, all right, I think we've laboured the point, lads. White Slavery, what a way to open up the album. Just fucking monolith, monumental, just behemoth of a track. And one of Typo Negative's finest tunes for me is that you've got some other weird little oddities on. I mean, you've got Hallows Eve, All Hallows Eve, I should say, which is the penultimate track, and kind of the closer, if you will. I mean, the closer in actual fact is it's called Day Tripper. It's a Beatles medley, and a really good Beatles medley, because they go into one of my favourite Beatles tracks to finish on the sort of, is it I Want You, She's So Heavy? They just did the She's So Heavy bit at the end, which is fucking heavy. It's just brilliant. But yeah, Beatles medley to finish. Pirate Ablaze is one of my favourite on here. It's a really nice, poppy little tune, but with like massive doomy riffs in it. It's a great tune. Everything Dies on here, of course. As is Creepy Green Light, another great tune. Everyone I Love Is Dead. Who Will Save the Sane? And the title track, of course, Will Coming Down. You've got some interludes as well with like Sinus, Lung, what's the other one called? Liver. Where he's talking about his fucking cocaine addiction, his alcohol addiction, and it's grim subject matter, making for a grim fucking album. And as daft as it sounds, I don't think I was ready for it when it came out. I've since learned to love it, and that's why it's the 3rd best Typo Negative album. But we really are splitting hairs here once we get to this top 3, so this could have been number 1. It's that close. Great album. Will Coming Down. Okay, number 2. And I've already spoilt the excitement, but I will go for one of my 3 copies of it. Bloody Kisses is my number 2. Okay, there's 2 of them. One of them's the triple green. I think that's the triple green vinyl. That's the double silver vinyl. Both represses. And I've also got it without the Typo logo on it. From the box set there as well. But this is the one I was supposed to dig out. This CD, the reissue CD that I've got, but I'll explain now. Number 2, Bloody Kisses. The first Type O Negative record that I heard, and the reason that I became a massive Type O Negative fan. Such an important record to me, and to every Type O fan, I imagine. This is where the first thing I heard was Black Number 1. And it was just an absolute game changer. There was a sort of goth vibe to it, but a kind of fun goth vibe. There was a jokiness to it in its darkness that just hooked me. I loved the hooks of the song and all that. And of course, I think it was either like Raw Power or the Power Hour or whatever it was where I first saw the video, I think. And that was the trimmed down version. It was hearing the full album in the car that Gaz played me, that where you hear the full fucking warts and all. Is it 9 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, the full version of it. And I mean, that on its own, it's such a fucking monster of a record. This is the triple, I think. Yeah, so you get the full gatefold fold out there. Yeah, with the, I won't bother getting the records out because I've been here 5 minutes trying to do it. But yeah, it could so easily have been my number 1, but came in at number 2 for reasons that I will disclose shortly. But it just works as a whole piece. It's fucking magnificent, and it is such a big sprawling record. You open up on this version of it, you open up with Machine Screw, like incidental piece with a bit of industrial noise going on and a woman clearly enjoying herself over the top of that, before bang, Christian Woman in all its glory. And then it goes into Black. I'm getting confused here because, as I'm going to explain, it was repressed on CD with all the more hardcore up-tempo tunes stripped out, all the incidental little connector pieces stripped out of it, and one maudlin piece of doomy magnificence. We Hate Everyone, Kill All the White People were removed from the album, and in its place became one of Type O's slowest and more maudlin songs called Suspended in Dusk, which clearly pays homage to, I think they were fans of Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles and like Interview with the Vampire and stuff like that. It's such a beautifully done, melancholic tune with the lyrics from the vampire's perspective, if you will. And yeah, just done fabulously well. And that version of it, I think that was a 94 repress on a Digipack CD. I don't think vinyl ever saw the day of it. The triple, this one's got Suspended in Dusk on it. Amongst other like reworkings of Blood and Fire and the Christian Woman fucking butt-kissing sellout version or whatever they call it. Just a magnificent record. I love both versions of it. I love the doomier Suspended in Dusk version of it. I think there's a time and a place for that whenever I feel it. I love this one in its original setup though, with the faster hardcore tunes on it, the interludes. And also they tweaked the track listing ever so slightly as well on the rework. But this is just brilliant. You have a fabulous cover version of Summer Breeze by the Isley Brothers, which when I first heard it, didn't even know that was a cover. It was done so well in their own vision, if you will. Can't Lose You, which is with sitars playing over the top of it and all that. Set Me on Fire, that comes out of Summer Breeze, that sort of runs into one whole track. Blood and Fire, as mentioned. Black Number 1, Christian Woman, the title track, Bloody Kisses, which is just a fabulous doomy opus. And one of Type O's most doomy finest hours for me is that. You've got Too Late, Frozen. That's a beautiful little, starts fairly sort of up-tempo with Sal's amazing drums on it. And then goes into that end with the kind of croaky voice and sort of effects all over it. It's just brilliant. And what Type O did, and which I probably should have mentioned far earlier than once we get to number 2 in the list, is the way they mixed creepy keyboard effects and synths just seamlessly into the setup. Just fabulous songwriting, just really, really good. And this album, again, could so easily, I mean, it's almost joint top, to be quite honest with you. There's really nothing between that and what is number 1. But it's such a magnificent record. And one of my greatest albums of all time. If I was to do a top 10 most influential albums, which I probably will at some point, this is going to be on it because it completely shifted focus from that point onwards. So number 2, Bloody Kisses. And you will all be aware, coming in at number 1 is October Rust. I'm wearing the t-shirt. This for me is Type O Negative's finest hour. It's their most grown-up piece. It's just an incredible piece of work. I mean, this as well, I'm sure I've shown it off before, but this is an original Dutch press, 96 Dutch Roadrunner press of it. It cost me quite a bit of money, but it's worth even more now, so yeah. But this is just, it flows magnificently as a record. It picks up where Bloody Kisses left off with the more goth doom vibe, and they basically just took that and ran with it on this album. You can tell that I think they were in the studio a long time with this, and you can sort of tell that they were constantly reworking bits because there are so many layers to the tracks here, and stuff that I imagine, because I never got to see them live, stuff that I imagine didn't transpose to the live setting particularly easily because there's so much layerage going on with it. I mean, you've got the Daft opener, Background, where it sounds like CD player's fucked or whatever it is. And then it goes into Love You to Death. Just a great tune. And yeah, you could argue sort of one of Type O's more poppier numbers. And there's a lot of that on here. But what I love about it is that Pete's clearly got his sort of shoegaze head on this record. I believe at the time he was listening to a lot of My Bloody Valentine. And you can hear that in spades all over this record. Because there's so much shoegazy ambient vibe to it in places. I'm thinking in particular of Die With Me, Burnt Flowers Falling, and on the track In Praise of Bacchus, which might be my favourite Type O track of all time if I had to pick one. It's just stunning. You've got I mean, there's Be My Druidess as well, that's got a very sort of like indie rock vibe to it, a jangly guitar vibe sort of, and the shoegaziness sort of element to it. But Green Man on here, Red Water, Christmas Morning, which I almost sort of see as the title track, weirdly, off of this record. It's so tongue-in-cheek funny about like having the shittest Christmas ever, because everyone's dead, or something like that. But just a brilliant, great Christmas tune as well, but a brilliant song. My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, I would say, is probably the weakest moment on this. It's the most well-known song. It was the first lead single off of this. And it's a bit kind of jokey, daft. I think there's elements of this where they were clearly playing to the company clearly realised that for the fucking units that Bloody Kisses had shifted, that Type O were a big deal at this point. This, I would say, is the height of their success and fame. You had his Playgirl fucking spread that he did around this time as well, which I think he forever regretted, but you know, one of them. Yeah, it's magnificent. It's probably Type O's most emotional record. You could argue it's Type O's most poppy record, really, and I use that in its very loosest term. But I think it's that shoegazy, the ambient nature of some of them, where there's so much going on it. You've got a great cover of Neil Young's Cinnamon Girl on here. You've got another daft little sort of instrumental piece at The Glorious Liberation of the People's Technocratic Republic of Vinnyland by the combined forces of the United Territories of Europa. Yeah, great. Anyway, whatever it is. Wolf Moon and Haunted are two doomy epics to finish. And it's just fantastic. Like I say, barring My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, which tends to get skipped if I'm playing this through a lot of the time, but not all the time. But it's just without fault, really. You know, besides that, it's just fantastic, and that is why that is my number one Type O Negative album. So yeah, there you are. That is from my worst to best, and I must stress, no bad albums in this Type O collection. Yeah, number 7, Life Is Killing Me. Number 6, Origin of the Feces. Number 5, Slow, Deep and Hard. Number 4, Dead Again. Number 3, World Coming Down. Number 2, Bloody Kisses. And number 1, October Rust. Fantastic. Right, that'll do. 35 minutes. So, that's my typo negative top 7. I'd like to hear yours, folks. Next week's video will be a rundown of the gig that's coming up this Sunday, so I'll give you a full kind of like what's and all of how that went. Hopefully magnificently, but we'll see. And then I'm going to do I think I might tag on a in fact, I'll leave it as a surprise, actually, thinking about it. But it's something that's reared its head over the last few weeks on the vinyl community, and I want to go into greater depth about it. So, but I'll explain all that in due course. So, with all that done, thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe. Thank you to my couple of new subscribers. Another one that I lost fairly quickly, but I appreciate that this is the turbulent nature of subscriptions on this thing. Yeah, I think we're up to 109, 110 again now, possibly. But anyway, I think it's 109, but whatever. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. And until next week, I will bid you adieu. So, I'll see you next time. Ta-da, folks.